You're listening to a Galactic Network podcast. For more, go to gncast.com.
We're the ElseNerds.
Blathering on. This is the weird part. Oh, why the fuck am I selecting? You shouldn't be. When I select people who it doesn't matter. I did get control. But still, I have control over who I can see. And I'm like, why the fuck am I an egomaniac and looking at myself?
I think you answered your own question, buddy.
Yeah. I got a problem. The reason why I moved the mirrors around in here, I'd rather see myself.
I hope they don't make a audio limiter for Corey to go on his rants.
No, I think I just gotta remember if I'm gonna be louder, I gotta back away from the mic. So, just waiting for my cue to go. And I'm Ron Burgundy. Who put a question mark? Don't you know he reads anything off the prompter? God, I hate to say it, but I am such a fucking Ron Burgundy. And welcome to the ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Networks. I'm Gregor Sprague, and joining me is Corey Scott. You can find all of the stuff about us on ElseNerds.com or our network over at gncast.com. And a warning, we will shoot our mouth off. We will spoil things, and we will swear. And I just realized I did not have the right background on behind me. I am ashamed. I am deeply, deeply ashamed. I just gave the video people a little taste as to what we'll be talking about later.
That's your first spoiler.
Yeah, there's your first spoiler, folks.
I am still in cold recovery, so expect me to mute myself a lot as much as possible when I try not to inadvertently cough into people's ears on the show. But otherwise, I'm glad to be back.
Okay. No, that's good. It's good to hear that you are at least, having the decency to cover your mouth. The first bit of news is the image that I actually just had up there, but that David Goyer is going to be, or maybe directing, the Green Lantern Corps movie. He is currently co-writing with Justin Rhodes, the movie, but it could be like could be doing more. And it's no surprise that we are not the biggest Goyer fans.
Well, I mean, Goyer is not a fan of comic fans in general from some of the statements that he's made. And that's part of the problem, is that Goyer has had a lot of success. A lot of his successes have come from working in comics or comic properties. He worked as a writer on the Constantine series. He worked on Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, the Blade films, the Dark Knight films from Batman Begins on up. Even Jumper, which is not necessarily comic book related, has a comic book movie feel. But he kind of says some unpalatable things as far as comic fans and comic properties go. He's been on the record pointing out that he believes that She-Hulk is basically a sexual version of a woman for the Hulk to have sex with, even though they're cousins. But basically, it's just like, yeah, it's the Hulk that as a teenage boy you want to see get banged. On top of that, he said things like, who in the room at a comic convention has heard of Martian Manhunter? And then when people have their hands raised, now how many of you have actually had sex? And basically implies that, of course, if you've heard of this comic book character, you must be a virgin. You must fit a stereotypical ideal of what people have been placed into for decades when it comes to being comic book fans. So it's always nice to have one of the heroes of the industry come in there and just reconfirm that to you. And then he says things like Martian Manhunter is stupid. You can't call him Martian Manhunter because that's dumb. So he should just be called Manhunter. It's a lack of appreciation for the genre, which is strange considering how deeply indebted he is to it. And every time he works on stuff, it's like it's hit or miss. Some of it is taken well. The first two Blade movies were certainly taken well. First two Batman movies I certainly liked a lot. But he's had his rough spots too, and certainly when it comes to directing, he hasn't had any real success. Blade Trinity, which obviously a lot of the problems with that came from the lead star, but Threshold, The Invisible, The Unborn, flash forward a couple episodes of his Da Vinci's Demon series. It's not like he's been a big name director in any regards. So it would be kind of strange to put him in charge of one of these flagship movies that Warner Brothers is still trying to get out when they're struggling so hard to get these films made. It seems like I don't know why they would chance it on this guy, but again, he keeps winding up getting billed for stuff like this. So yep. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, it is definitely a weird thing to have happen. I mean, especially because I don't want to see this. To me, screams that he's just doing this for a paycheck. Like,
well, like I said, he's part of the system. He's part of the DC films, anyways. He's been writing these screenplays with I can't even think of his name. The guy that I bitch about every fucking week. Zack Superman. Yeah, Zack Snyder. He's already been working with him on these things, and so it is kind of maybe it's a reward system of, oh well, you're such an integral part of this. Why wouldn't we let you take the reins of this? But
that's the problem. That's honestly the problem though, because look over at the Marvel side. Jon Favreau loved Iron Man, loves comic books, and all this, has a respect for the fans. Made Iron Man 2, has made or been involved in a lot of the stuff. You go on down the road, you get the Russos, you get Joss Whedon, with the Avengers movies, and it's one of these things that it's like you see respect for the fans, respect for the source material, not saying things like, oh well, even though I'm from Detroit, I'm going to make a Kentucky statement and say that, I think Jennifer Walters would fuck her cousin, and stuff like that.
By the way, he is from Ann Arbor, just so you know. Let's be realistic though. There have been plenty of comic artists, comic writers throughout history who have not necessarily respected the fans, but still had very prolific careers in the industry. I think it's more of Jon Favreau had a good degree of success before going and doing Iron Man. Didn't do anything like Iron Man though at that point in time. The expectations were incredibly low. They didn't know that Iron Man was going to blow up the way that it did. The Russo brothers, again, we knew them. We knew that they could direct, but we hadn't seen them do something like they did until they did The Winter Soldier. So that changes things. So yeah, you can grab somebody who and like raise their expectations by putting them in charge of these films. I don't know what the hiring process is, something like that. It feels more like, oh wait, who have we got in the room right now who maybe wants to direct Green Lantern? Because fuck, we just keep blowing through directors once a week. It seems like here's our runner for this movie. Flash. How many directors has Flash gone through so far? How many directors? Obviously, at least 2 now for Batman. With now the star, the guy who's supposed to be playing Deathstroke in that doesn't even know if he's playing the character anymore because the entire thing's been scrapped and rebooted. Aquaman's getting pushed back a couple of months now. They're trying to put a 3rd film on the docket just to fill the gap that they've created by everything running late. And that's kind of the scary thing too, is that they don't have a handle on the films that they're already doing. Unless they're planning on moving Green Lantern up, though, at least it was something that was not planned for a few years. But it's still just very strange that there's so much that they should be like 100% dialed in on at this point, and they just keep having to swat bugs away. I don't know what is going on in this studio right now. It's not encouraging.
Yeah, and Beatmaster's pointing out a quote from the article that was taken by the tracking board reporter Jeff Snyder, that he mentioned on his on a recent episode of Meet the Movie Press, a podcast that he co-hosts each week. He's saying that and I'm going to paraphrase all of this. He's hearing that David Goyer could very well wind up directing the Green Lantern Corps himself, and that he's essentially been, like you said, been the architect. You know, he wrote Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and he wrote Man of Steel. And he's, the last little bit is what he has heard, one of these situations where Goyer could be like, listen, I may be the best guy for the job. No one knows this like I do. That worries me. That honestly worries me, because I think we might end up with another. I want to be optimistic. I try to live my life optimistically. You know, hope for the best and then get the worst has always been how I want to do things. And I have a feeling we might get another Green Lantern movie that we will force out of our minds, like that one that starred a dude who later became Deadpool.
But that movie, you got to keep in mind, Martin Campbell directed, and Martin Campbell before that had done Casino Royale. You know, he had done movies where he was a successful director. He'd done the Zorro movies with Banderas. He had done GoldenEye. He had a pedigree, and he made a terrible Green Lantern movie. A Green Lantern movie that had writers that write the DC shows now that are very widely considered a huge success. So you can fail with the right people, which means you can also succeed with the people that are perceived as not necessarily the best choices.
No, yeah.
I'm not gonna count the guy out. It's just, I kind of wonder who wants to direct these DC films at this point. I have to question who is sitting there and saying to themselves, I am champing at the bit to get to do the next Superman movie or the next Aquaman movie or Flash movie or whatever, because so many people come and go through this. I mean, we've seen people leave in the midst of working on Marvel films. Obviously, Ant-Man is a big one because that was in development for so long, and it was associated with one guy that everybody was looking forward to this happening. And then for him to leave felt like a pretty big setback. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that happens on the Marvel films in that regard, it just sort of happens and it gets swept under the rug because it's not a big deal. It's not like we've seen it affect the films. The DC films have a problem currently with their success rate, that they should be landing bigger, and they're just not. And so I wonder who's looking at this and saying, oh, I want to go into that room and be the person who makes something great out of this, because maybe people right now are too afraid to do it.
Yeah. I don't know, but again, time will tell, and I honestly hope I'm wrong. You know, I would rather eat crow and say, okay, yes, David Goyer did a great Justice League movie than go, I was right, he fucking sucked, and all that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, I don't give a shit about the person who made the movie. If I enjoyed the movie, there are certainly times I don't watch Woody Allen movies because I think Woody Allen is a fuck all. But I do know that I've watched films by people who are not necessarily the best people and still managed to enjoy the movies. It's tough to moralistically judge art based off the artist more than what's presented in front of you. So if Goyer is an asshole, but he makes a good film, then I'm not going to begrudge him for it. I really want the DC universe to succeed. I'm still a long ways away from thinking that it can, but I would love it if it happened. I just, I see decisions like this and it confuses me, but I'm not in that room and I'm not the one who has to make these decisions. Thank God.
All right. So I got a question for you, Corey.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
You practice. No, that's not it. That's something else entirely. No, I think you make right at the first star and straight on to. No, that's something else. If you believe really, no, you grab a Snuffleupagus' taint. Something. It's been such a long time. But I think I know where we're going. I think I know where the story is headed.
So, for those of you guys who do not know, Sesame Street, and how could you not know, is essentially an American institution. When you think American television, at least here in America, you think of a few things. You think The Price is Right when you're sick, and usually it's like you're sick and you're like, cuddled up at your grandma's house eating chicken noodle soup, and then on comes this. But then there's the show that has been around for almost 50 years, that started in 1969 and answered a simple question that changed the world when it came to television. Could television be used to educate young children? We obviously found out that this answer is yes, because they are in their 48th season, something like that.
Yeah.
And they're on HBO, and they're still on PBS Kids, so don't freak out about that part. But they're actually going to do something special here. They're going to air an episode on both HBO and PBS Kids at the same time. They're introducing a new Muppet called Julia. Now, why would we be talking about a Muppet?
Well, I talk about Muppets all the time because that's my jam.
Well, yeah, but still, to talk about something on a show that teaches kids, their ABCs, their 1, 2, 3s, and stuff like that. Well,
and near and far.
Yeah, both near and far. That's very simple. This Muppet has autism. Now, before you become a smartass and go, well, it's just a puppet, it can't have it. It's portraying a kid with autism. And actually, I believe is modeled after a kid, like an actual real life kid, which I find really interesting.
It's modeled after a lot of different aspects that they weighed very heavily to figure out which ones to portray in this particular character. Now, it is part of the creation came from a mother and her son who has autism. But what they're trying to specifically do is introduce it to kids so that they're not afraid of it when they meet somebody who has autism. They're not confused or put off by them. And one of the things about autism is that the way that it's displayed is almost always very different. It's an individual thing. It's not like anybody has the same sort of characteristics that they display. There might be some that are similar, but realistically, it's different for everybody who has it. And of course, there's different levels of autism. My brother has Asperger's, which I have found in more members of my extended family going on. It's one of those things that the mystery of it is still kind of a big thing, is that people don't understand it. And like you said, we grew up watching Sesame Street. I grew up watching Sesame Street. It's part of why I had a love of reading, a love of characters, a lot of different things. Some of my favorite books as a kid were like the monster at the end of this book, or Grover Plays Hide and Seek. Those things, like I still have copies of those today because they're treasures to me. And if this had been something that I could have grown up with too, this type of character, then it would have made a lot of the things in finding out about my brother and other people, it would have made it a lot easier for me because I would have an understanding going in.
And the question, I'm going to read this actually from the interview. This was originally from CBS, from their 60 Minutes, and they asked the question about how to portray autism. And it's like you said, Christine Ferrero, the writer on Sesame Street for 25 years, she says it's tricky because autism is not one thing, because it's different for every single person who has autism. There is an expression that goes, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And so, I mean, this is a really cool thing, because Sesame Street for me has always, in a lot of the ways, it's how I look at the X-Men, because the X-Men at the core, or for me at the core of them, it was always about equality. We are people where we might be different. I might be fat, you might be skinny, you might have glasses, you might be, blue and furry and love cookies. We're all people, we're all humans.
And everybody has something that kind of makes them special or individual.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's another thing too, is something that it never even occurred to me that it was something to admire about Sesame Street, but it's always been there, is that it's always been multicultural. It was the first time I heard anybody speak Spanish was not in real life. It was on Sesame Street.
With Rosita, I believe.
Oh, probably before Rosita. Remember, 70s, way different time. But just in general, there was always different people of different cultures, different races. I know that they've introduced a character that has AIDS on the show a few years ago. They dealt with the death of Mr. Hooper on the show in a children's program, where that's something that very easily could have been just something that they glazed over and skipped. They dealt with it head on, and they dealt with the pain of loss and how that affects the characters that are still there. And it still is one of those things that is very real to me today, because even though I was old enough to understand that stuff at the time that it happened, it was such a big deal to see it experienced by such an innocent character as Big Bird. And to understand that for kids, this is probably their first understanding of death. And it's something that parents don't know how to explain to children. And it's not something you can explain until you experience it.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I truly love about, or one of the things I truly love about Sesame Street, and why can't wait for my niece to get a little bit older so I can just be like, hey, Sesame Street. And I could start watching it with her again, and maybe they'll finally tell me how to get there.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'll still put on Sesame Street here and there and watch that stuff.
Oh no, yeah. When I had HBO last year, this was like right when they had made the announcement that they were going to be on, and she's not even a year old, and I'm sitting there with her on my lap going, can you say, who is that? Can you say count? And, all that. She's not doing any of it because she's only 8 months old, 7 months old, and all that. And I'm still like, don't care.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't crying. She was watching the TV. Don't know if she could truly see what was going on or know what was going on, but still, it's like, I don't care. I might get HBO just to watch it some more.
This is sort of for you, kid, but it's really for me.
Yeah. Well, because I honestly did that the other last Friday when I had to, or when we had lost power here from the windstorms. I had to go over to my grandma's house and watch her, and I put on an old, well, not me old, it was when I was a kid, a show called Zaboomafoo that was aired on PBS. And so I could sort of take a nap while she's in this playpen, playing with her toys and watching the TV, because of all the different animals and stuff like that. but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's Sesame Street, and I really love that they're doing this.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Sesame Street gets to continue to exist. I mean, a lot of people were upset when it became Sesame Street was moving over to HBO, but HBO, what they were doing is they were paying essentially for Sesame Street to continue to be, especially right now when we're losing funding to PBS overall. It's because of HBO that we're going to that Sesame Street's not a part of that. That
Yes.
Sesame Street is going to continue to be out there for the kids of the next generation. And I think that that's incredibly important. I think PBS itself is incredibly important too. But certainly the closest to my heart is going to be Sesame Street. It's just, it's been around forever. And I want to see, my nephew get to watch it. I want to see the kids of the next generations get to watch it and be a part of it too.
So what I'm hearing from you is all of our listeners should send this part right here to Donald Trump saying, and being the reason why not to cut public or the funding for the National Broadcasting Corporation.
Or, put your money towards PBS directly. Everybody needs a fucking tote bag once in a while.
Hells yeah. All right. The next story is one that I it's Top Gear time, okay, folks? I know I talked about it before, but I'm truly excited for this news because this is the news that BBC America is bringing Top Gear to the US again. Now, I know what you're saying, dumbass. It already airs it already airs with Matt LeBlanc, Roy Reed, Chris Harris on Sunday nights. I am not talking about that. No. I am talking about Top Gear America. Now, forget, that one that abomination of a show that starred Tanner Faust. I'm blanking on the other guys' names. Rutledge Wood and Adam Ferrara. Forget that show. This show is going to star William Fichtner, who was in The Dark Knight, Contact, Armageddon. No, excuse me. Professional drag racer Antron Brown, not Alton Brown. I'm like, wait, what? And then British automotive journalist Tom Ford. The BBC America has ordered 8 one-hour episodes, and they will air later this year. And the only announcements that we really have is that it will be filmed in Las Vegas. It will seem, I'm not sure if they're going to go with this format or a format, like by this I mean like a format similar to the one that uses the set here from Series 24, or are they going to go more the classic Top Gear with the former or the now Grand Tour hosts? But this will be at their track will be at Speed Vegas, and of course, the Stig, the Top Gear's mysterious test driver, will be leaving everyone in his petrol hazed wake. So I look forward to. I love this. I love hearing this and seeing that it's hopefully going to be Top Gear, but with American people, focusing more on American concepts when it comes to the cars. Not just, oh well, here we're going to test a hypercar, which I love. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing that stuff. But that's not really American. That's the European model of things. So come over here and yeah, we got the muscle cars and we got the modded cars and we got the old school cool cars and stuff like that. That's what I want to see. That's what I'm hoping that we'll get here in this season. Corey, does this interest you at all, or was that just me ranting?
I still haven't seen a goddamn thing of Top Gear. I don't know what the hell this show is.
So you know that thing that's in your driveway, right? It's got the 4 wheels and you put the key in it and it goes and it takes you to work.
Sort of. Not
it's
really.
a show about that. But the thing it's called a car.
So I gotta watch people go to work every day? The fuck you talking about?
No, that's WWE's ride along. But they're at work already. reviewing the
I've
cars.
seen that show. It's called Carpoolers. It was shit then. It's shit now. The Caveman Show was better. I don't know. I mean, the thing is that cars aren't really my interest level. Like, I'll watch things like I watched Monster Garage for a while when it was on. I like the building aspect of it, the creating something new. That's something else. But I don't know, man. It's just like I'm not into the muscle cars, the racing stuff. None of that stuff has ever been my bag. But I get why it's other people's.
Yeah, and I mean the big thing with it is honestly going to be the camaraderie, because that's what was like I said last week in my review of the new series. That's what we got here with this show, with this series, that we didn't with last season with Chris Evans. We didn't get that camaraderie. It just seemed like we're here doing a job. We're here driving this car while we're going to work.
I mean, I don't understand that at all either, though, because I hate people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, here the only reason we do this is because I probably just am like, oh, he's a video person. I don't know who I've never met him in real life.
I mean, I'm just David Goyer showing up for a paycheck. I'm still waiting, by the way.
Sorry, it's in the mail. Like, it's Nigeria keeps taking it. But I mean, yeah. So that's honestly I'm excited for this. I know a lot of people are going to be excited too. I just hope it is good. I don't want to see, because I quickly went away from the Top Gear that was on the History Channel. My mom's boyfriend, he really likes it, and every time I say Top Gear, he goes to that one. I'm like, no, the better one, the British one, the one where they do car reviews, not just we're gonna drive this car or these old, not muscle cars, these old like 60s, station wagons across the Sierra Nevada mountains, and stupid shit like that. Well, I shouldn't say stupid, but I mean sort of missing the point of what Top Gear is at its essence.
Yeah, but we do know, of course, that you are slightly British biased.
Well, I mean, let's just put it to you this way: there is a British person in my Minecraft community that I am more British than he is. He says it himself. Like, he's more American than I am, and I am more British than he is.
I think this is a polite way of telling you to stick a toad in your hole.
Well, I think that's going to do it for the ElseNews. We will be right back.
Open you up like the Thames.
All right, and we are back, and it is time for the ElseViews. And to continue with what I was going to say before, that's like my middle name, Thomas. I spelled it at first when I was younger, Tomes, because I spelled it how it sounded, and my mom was like, "No, that's wrong," and she spelled it. I'm like, "No, that's Thomas. My name is not Thomas." But that's a different story. But yeah, it is time for our ElseViews. This is the section of the show where we talk about TV shows, and TV shows. Because we have 4 TV shows for you that we're going to talk about. I picked 3 because really they're just the pilots. I picked 3 Amazon pilots. And I'm going to go through these first because have you seen any of the Amazon pilots?
No, I'm still kind of abstaining from Amazon's content until I find the crossover to finally invest in Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me to invest myself into the content that they're making because I'm not going to have the opportunity to see it otherwise.
Yeah. So a couple of, and I think we're getting close to that where it's like, just do it because there's enough original content out there. But this is there's only 5 shows, and I've watched 3 of them. They're out there for the pilot season for this part. All of which you can go to collider.com. They have, the Amazon pilot guide essentially. But the first one I'm going to talk about, I think, is probably going to be the one that you would be the most interested in, because I believe I've heard you say you watch Gilmore Girls, or you've watched Gilmore Girls.
Never seen it once.
Never seen it once. Why did I think that?
I don't know. Because I seem like a guy who would watch Gilmore Girls.
Well, but this is this is written by the creator of Gilmore Girls, and she later created Bunheads on ABC Family, Amy Sherman Palladino, and this is called The Marvelous Miss Maisel. And this show is a period piece, but that time period is 1958. And we meet oh god, I'm blanking on her first name. Midge is how everyone calls her. Maisel, on her wedding day, she's giving her own toast at her wedding, and it's setting up the backstory of everything. And then we fast forward 4 years. She has 2 kids with her husband, and he's working at this office, and then at night they go out to a variety, like a bar that has like an open stage, like an open mic night, and he's doing different stand-up routine. Like he's doing stand-up. He wants to be a stand-up comedian and stuff like that. The cool part with this show, I'm gonna take a pause right there, is they have actors playing other actors. Like Lenny Bruce is a character in this show. He has a guest spot throughout the pilot, and it's really cool to see, because I'm like, wait, hey, Lenny Bruce. Like, it's not actually Lenny Bruce, but like I know that name inside of all these other fictitious names. And the cast is amazing. The lead actress, I cannot think of her name, but she's
Rachel Brosnahan.
Yes, she is great in here. But you also got Alex Borstein,
Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub. I'm like, I can't think of it. Who's Tony Shalhoub, who I freaking hate in here. He is such a dick, but it works well. Because he is playing a grandfather, a newly found grandfather in the late 50s. So he's playing up to that whole stay out of this room, it's my office, you don't touch anything and we're good. Sort of deal. But the rest of the pilot goes, she's keeping track of how many times he gets a laugh and all this stuff. Her husband, and he decides to leave her for various reasons. So she gets completely drunk, and in her nightgown and robe goes down to the club and drunkenly does a killer comedy set and all that. And that's where it's going to go from here. And it's really funny. I cannot recommend this enough. I think a lot of people will enjoy this show, and I hope it gets picked up. I highly hope it gets picked up. The next one I'm going to go real quickly, and you're going to have to tell me on or actually the one after this one, you'll have to tell me on some of the people who are in there. But the next one is Budding Prospects. This is a Will Sasso's on here. Brett Gelman is in here. This one is set in the mid to late 80s, I think. Actually, I think it's 83. And
1983.
Yeah, the whole concept is the lead guy. He works in this bar, and it's just sort of like dead end work and all this stuff. He wants to become a writer. So Brent Gelman's character gives him this job where he will go up into these woods, where it's middle of bumfuck nowhere in Northern California. I believe they later called it Roner Park. No, I'm joking. But no, like way up in
Accurate.
almost almost Oregon, from how I'm picturing this. to grow pot and I think opium, but like to grow drugs. And for 9 months, if they do this whole thing, the three main characters, Will Sasso is one of them. Then they will become. Then they will make $500,000 tax free. And that is the base premise of this. You also have, oh god, I'm blanking on her name.
Natalie Morales.
That's it. Natalie Morales was in the pilot. I hope she's a series regular because she was really good in here. Just adding that whole like this different dynamic, and a love interest too for our main character. But this is not on the top of my list, but it is not at the bottom. I still have to see the other two shows. But yeah, that is Budding Prospects, and then the final one, and this is the one like if you're looking, I'm assuming you're looking at the Amazon for the cast because you have to tell me who's in this because I thought I heard Jason Sudeikis.
I don't see him listed in the credits. We've got Matt Browner, Ben Schwartz, who we know from Parks and Rec, and what was it, Lie to Me, or what was the show that's on Showtime that he's in?
House of Lies.
House of Lies. Missy Pyle, Carrie Kinney. Good amount of people in this. Now, this is animated, it looks like.
Yes, this is in the Creed Bratton, who you'll know as Creed from The Office. He is a supporting character. But he so this is animated. It's in that home movies style or Bob's Burgers art style where it's not, like high production stuff, but it also could just be, because this is a pilot. Like I remember one of the first pilots that Amazon had, they said, some of the animation is, not the best, but that's also because this is a pilot. If we go to full series, the production will look a lot better.
Yeah, and the director is Mark Brooks, and Mark Brooks worked as a writer on Metalocalypse. Yeah, I can never say that goddamn title.
But yeah, the premise of this is, you got four. I'm just gonna read the description. 4 low-level employees seize control of a major corporation after accidentally murdering the CEO. It's hilarious in how everything is done here because it is so just way like accidents like Weekend at Bernie's but multiplied by 5, just because of how these things are happening here, and really really well done. Carrie Kinney, Silver, is hilarious in here, and she's I think gonna be the main antagonist. Like they're trying to stay one step ahead of her, and it I just remember the ending of the episode. It was so freaking hilarious because they're all throughout she's just trying to figure out who's writing bad things about her, basically like like the for a good time call in the bathroom stalls. And so they come in, and this one guy who's, to use an office analogy, since we got Creed Bratton on here, who is like the Dwight Schrute, but would even read on Dwight Schrute. He's like this super, stick to the rules type person. He thinks he figured out who is doing these drawings and stuff of her, and he's showing all these. He's got like 40 slides comparing all the different letters and all this stuff, like getting real CSI with the shit. And they cut to the end, and the CEO, I'm using quotes here, is like, "Man, don't you all know that the night security guard does all those?" And I'm just I start laughing because I find it really funny because I'm also leaving out key parts here. But yeah, that's the new VIPs. I'm not sure if I would like to see this get picked up. Honestly, I'd like to see all 3 of them get picked up. And I'm not sure about the other 2 only because I didn't watch them, and I will let you know for fairness for the viewers. The other 2 that I haven't watched are The Legend of Master Legend. This is a dark comedy about the life of Frank Lafont, aka Master Legend, a homemade superhero whose mission is to protect the people of Las Vegas from evildoers. And then the other one is at the bottom. It's Oasis, and it's based on the cult hit novel, The Book of Strange New Things, from Michael Faber. Oasis follows the chaplain, Richard Madden from Mad Men, or not from Mad Men, from Game of Thrones, who is sent into space to help establish a colony on a distant planet. And he ends up discovering but what he ends up discovering not only puts his faith to the test, but life as we know it. Yeah, so it's like there's some good stuff out there. It's just I didn't get time to watch all the pilots to where we could then do, like next week or something, do a full on review, because also I was watching what you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go crazy on this because I have not completed the series yet. I just know that people have been posting early reviews of the first 6 episodes that were shown to reviewers of the new Marvel Netflix series Iron Fist, and they had access to the first 6 episodes. And this show seems to have gotten torn to bits in a lot of reviews, saying it's the first failure on Marvel's parts. It's certainly the least embraced of the Netflix shows so far. There is a lot of, for some reason, controversy over the fact that they cast a Caucasian in the role of a character who in the comics is Caucasian. I don't know exactly how that works. They wanted it to be an Asian actor to increase Asian actors in Hollywood, which I completely agree with. But it would have then put an Asian actor into a very stereotypical Asian role, which part of the reason why this character was created in the way that it was is to put someone who's not of Asian descent into that role.
Now, here let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a second, because I mentioned this last week at work, and one of my friends, in a way, me and B and Evan would jokingly say with you whenever we mentioned Man of Steel, don't. I do this whole I did this whole thing of where I said the people who are complaining that Danny Rand is white in here when he's white in the comics are the same people who complained that Michael B. Jordan should not play Johnny Storm because he's black.
I don't know that they're the same people, but it sounds equally ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm a white guy, so my problems are minor, and it's the only thing minor about me. So I get why it might have been an interesting move to make the character of Asian descent. I don't know if that's what they wanted to do for this character or for this story. At the same time, the problems with the show realistically do exist. I'm about 8 episodes in, and I have to say that it is only slightly holding my attention at this point. It is paced slowly, and I've kind of gotten used to the fact that the Marvel shows on Netflix have a slow pacing. They all seem a little long in their seasons. They seem like they go 13 episodes when they should go 8. Yeah, they could be a lot tighter. I ran into it with Jessica Jones. I ran into it with the second season of Daredevil, but at least with the second season of Daredevil, what they did is they kind of split the season up into two different storylines almost. It's just that there's not a clear-cut point where it stops being one and starts being the other. We just suddenly focus on Elektra as opposed to the Punisher, although the Punisher still is involved in the end of the season. Luke Cage seemed to do it as well. And Luke Cage really bummed me out because I found the villain in the first part of the series far more interesting than the villain that they moved to later in the series. Yeah. That whole thing just seemed to go off the rails for me. But in a lot of ways, though, the show was still entertaining. I still found the lead actor intriguing. I found the actresses that were alongside of him intriguing. I'm not feeling the same way with Danny Rand and with the actor who's playing him, which is Finn Jones. I don't know if the problem is Jones himself. I feel like it's more the writing and the direction of the show. There's nothing about it that really stands out. The Iron Fist power set doesn't come into play for the first couple episodes until the end of the second episode. And it's really just I can punch stuff, which we already have. Jessica Jones is very strong. Luke Cage is very strong. There's nothing really impressive to this character. The fight scenes are much more intriguing when it's the Colleen Wing character, who I would watch a show about her with a lot more interest than what I have to this. The whole thing with Danny is they set him up to be the fish out of water guy, which is a little bit Captain America because he's been missing for 15 years. But they start out with this whole process of like, he's going to have to prove his identity to people and he's going to have to fight to get his company back. And then they just kind of like sweep it all under the rug really fast. Like they introduce all this conflict of it. And then it's like, well, now we don't want to deal with that shit. So fuck it. And hey, it's all okay. Now he's in charge of his company and shit. The characters that are the kids that he grew up with that kind of work against him at first, and I don't know how far it's going to go with the Ward Meacham character. They're all right, but the same thing with the father. The Harold Meacham is sort of there and feels important. And then again, just kind of like, oops, never mind about that bullshit. We're just going to deal with this thing over here. It's just so sudden changes that don't really feel like they're affecting the story enough to have mattered at all. So why did I just spend 4 hours watching about this character or watching about this storyline and then have it just go, well, you know, that's kind of boring now, so we're going to do this over here. It just seems to jump around a lot in a way that isn't coherent and not terribly interesting. I've seen very mixed reviews from fans as opposed to actual reviewers. Some people like it a lot. Some people think it's terrible. Most I see say it's good, it's just not great, and our expectations are really high, and it will be a better payoff when we get to the Defenders, which is coming up, and we see all these characters together.
And I think that might be part of the problem, where I fall in that category where it is good, and I do enjoy watching it. It's just came out at a weird place because. And this is where I'm going to tip my hat as to what I'm going to be talking about next week for my ElseViews, and that is Into the Badlands, where season 2 came out of that show, which is another kung fu action TV show. Also happens to star an Asian American actor in the lead role, but that is not. I am not touching the race debate with that at all. It's more with the antagonists.
To me, it's more that the action on that show and the fight scenes and everything on that show dwarf what is on this show to a huge degree. Yeah, like Into the Badlands, I dropped out of watching it in the first season because I didn't really love the characters, but the fight scenes are incredible on that.
Yeah,
And in this,
and they only
they're not good.
Yeah, and they only get better on Into the Badlands, which again, I'm saving for next week. But for season 1, they only get better as they go on. But with this, it was almost like it seemed like they shot this chronologically, which would make sense, but because some of the early fight scenes seem a little slow, like it's almost like this was them training, and then as it got further, it seemed like okay, they're picking up the pace, it's becoming better. But the point I was going to make before is the antagonist in Iron Fist, the Hand, are going to be the antagonist for the Defenders. So it's this sort of setting up for, or not really setting up for a foregone conclusion that I think has some people upset. And I don't know, because I'm also, I think, at episode 7 or 8. I'm not exactly, I think the last one was the felling of the tree with the roots. Was the name of the episode?
I couldn't tell you the
Yeah.
title. I just know that for a show that is supposed to be about a martial artist, and with the opening credits showing all of these amazing martial arts moves in the animation, it is not reflected within the show itself very well at all. And it's a show that is, frankly, a lot of the episodes, not a lot seems to happen. It moves at a almost glacial pace. I don't want to say that it's terrible. It's got some decent acting in it. It's got some good character acting in it, certainly. The guy who plays Ward, I really liked when he was on Banshee. As I already mentioned, Jessica Henwick, who plays Colleen Wing, is the far more interesting character for me. I like Joy. I like Madame Gao, who we saw from Daredevil, comes in as the antagonist in this, and I like that character, and I like to see where that's going to. But I'm not sold on this series, and at this point in time, at 7.5, 8 episodes in, I really feel like it should have grabbed my attention at least somewhat. Like Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, they had my attention early, and then we got to some slower parts where it was a little bit of a slog for them, but they also came around again at the end. This is 8 episodes, and I haven't found the part that's supposed to make me feel invested in it. And that's kind of surprising for this series, for these shows. I don't know a lot about the creator of the show, Scott Buck, and what else he's done. Oh, Dexter. I don't know if this is the right fit for him or not. But it's I can see why the complaints are there. It's certainly one of those things that I don't abhor it. I don't feel bad watching it if I want to be a completionist and watch all the Defenders individual seasons to get to the collected series when it happens. It's just that if it wasn't for that, I probably would have tuned out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I like the show. I will say it looks beautiful on that TV behind me there. But not the opening cinematic. Surprisingly enough, that I can see the little pixels and all that stuff as it's going around, and I'm like, yeah, that looks a little bad. But then I get into the TV or the actual episode because I'm paying for the 4K tier of Netflix now, and I'm like, ooh, pretty.
Yeah, the opening cinematic too. Also, it seems so evocative of the Daredevil opening that it didn't really stand out. Like each of these things have had a real individualism, and this one just doesn't. There's nothing special about it so far.
I would say it's pretty individual, because it's with the Daredevil one, it's just the blood dripping down on the different things, where this, it's Danny doing like some like Tai Chi fighting thing,
Which is all he does in the show. He just does Tai Chi all the fucking time.
Yeah.
It's like, Great. That's fantastic. Oh, look, he's posing again. The best thing about him doing Tai Chi was when the guy made the farting noise. And it's just like it's really weird. They introduce things like they introduce the character who's the homeless guy that's talking to him and kind of like giving him a little bit of a pep talk in the first episode. And then that guy's gone. And then they introduce the doctor who's the first person to kind of believe that he is who he says he is. And then that guy's just gone. And it's just like, it's so all over the place, and it's so not a coherent story. There's nothing to make you feel attached to Iron Fist. Like the defined character of Iron Fist is, I am the Iron Fist. I fight the hand. Oh, really? How's that going for you? Well, I've never fucking seen him before, so I guess it's cool that I showed up in the town that they're at. Okay, dude. You know, I just like, I just, it seems kind of, and they said that this is the hardest show for them to get a handle on. I just don't know that they did. And this is that same sort of thing of like, if you're creating a universe of things and you have an expectation that all these shows have to work together and they have to come at a certain time, you kind of leave yourself open to this happening. Is that you get a really great season of Daredevil, you get a really great, smartly developed show like Jessica Jones that has what is by far the best villain in the Marvel Universe, period. Easily at a match for Loki, but in some cases I think superior because it's also a finished story. You get a very, good feel for what a Luke Cage show should be at the very least. Execution maybe fell apart at the end a little bit, but at least it makes sense of like, oh yeah, this is what fucking Luke Cage should be like. And then there's Iron Fist, which has no real depth or personality so far. And that's a bummer to me. But I can't say that Iron Fist was ever a character that I looked at with having a lot of depth and personality in the comics. The coolest thing about Danny Rand was that he hung out with Luke Cage.
Yeah.
It was that they were in Heroes for Hire together. But I mean, as far as martial artists in the Marvel Universe go, Shang-Chi was kind of way fucking cooler anyways. And he would have been the actual Asian character that we were going to see reflected on the screen. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not trying to hate on it. I think that it has some definite challenges. I'm hoping it's going to finish strong. And I certainly hope that it all comes together and make a better cohesive story for Defenders itself. I'm looking forward to the interaction of these characters with each other, especially Danny and Luke, because I think that could bring out something in this character that he doesn't have now, which is how he plays off of being palled up with that guy. It's just, let's see what happens. I also am kind of a little torn because they're pushing a romance between him and Colleen Wing, whereas in the comics, Danny was together and is together with Misty Knight, which I, again, find more intriguing. Not that I don't like Colleen, because I think she's awesome. I want to see those two characters together as well. I want to see Colleen and Misty and the Daughters of the Dragon thing develop. That is way cool to me as well.
Yeah. The other part I will add that I really enjoy is the fact that the first 3 or 4 episodes really just, it's down close. You're focusing in on Danny, Joy and Ward Meacham, and then Colleen, and then Papa Meacham. Like, that's really it. There's not all this, so we're gonna go over here and go over there, and Harold Meacham. We're not going, over here and then over there and all that, and it stays with almost like through the whole thing, and then once we're at a natural part to break, then we go over here, in a way, and I really enjoyed that, seeing that here, and then how their stories sort of like naturally come here, meet together, will cross and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't even know about naturally at this point. That's the other thing for me, is that the Claire Temple character, I love Rosario Dawson. I'm glad that she's playing the night nurse character in this universe. but she's starting to feel shoehorned into every story. It's not feeling organic anymore. It's just feeling like, oh well, now we have to introduce Claire into this storyline too, and see how that makes it work. But she did have the best line of the series so far, which is, "You're supposed to fight the hand, and I know more about these motherfuckers than you do." Seriously, that is the greatest moment, because it's true. It's like, this guy, all he talks about is his destiny of fighting these things, and but you don't fucking do that. You've never done that. So what the shit, dude? Yeah, I don't know. 5 more episodes.
Yeah.
5 more
Okay.
episodes,
Yeah.
and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too. Because the episode I think I was in the middle of, was the blessing of many fractures, which is the other thing. That's one thing I really love about about the shows, and about a lot of the shows on with the Netflix Marvel stuff, is the naming of the episodes. Like with these, it seems like it seems like very almost like Tai Chi moves or something like that, or like a nice haiku is being said here when you look through the names of the episodes. And if that is racist, I deeply apologize. Now we'll get that out of the way, and yeah, check
It's
it out.
obvious that's what they're going for. It's just it just feels like window dressing at that point, as opposed to something that actually is literally doing itself a favor to the story.
Yeah. But yeah, that is going to do it here for the ElseViews. We will be right back. And we are back, and it is time for the ElseWords. This is our discussion point, and this time we have a twofer news story. The first bit is that the Big Bang Theory has been renewed for 2 more seasons. And then the second bit is that the Young Sheldon prequel has been greenlit straight to series by CBS. So, Corey, what are your thoughts on this? Because I believe with after these 2 seasons, they'd be at season 12.
It takes us up to season 12. One thing I wanted to mention about this is, so the main stars of the series, which would be Sheldon, Leonard, and Penny, they were getting paid $1 million an episode, which is something that we've seen when Friends was really popular. All the stars started getting paid $1 million an episode. Seinfeld, all the actors on that started getting paid $1 million an episode. So it's not unusual for the most popular comedy shows on TV to have their stars be in that $1 million range. When you look at the cost per episode, I think is about $10 million per episode of the show, and the amount of money that's going towards the cast at that point takes up the lion's share of it. It doesn't take a lot to produce the show, as far as like big sets or anything. But the those 3 actors, and then the ones who play Raj and Howard, have all agreed to take a pay cut of 10%, essentially. So going from $1 million an episode to $900,000 an episode, and have some of their residuals, their points, cut to apply towards the actresses who play Amy and Bernadette, to give them a bump up in pay, because they're not at that scale. They either haven't been in the show long enough, or they're not considered by the producers of the show to be of the same value as those other actors and actresses. Which, it's very impressive to me, and it's encouraging to me to see actors like that, cast members who stick up for their fellow castmates, who say, but they're a part of this too. You know, they're stars of the show too. They're a part of our family. We take care of them as well. They're still in negotiations though. But it seems likely that they'll sign back on, especially because they're integral to the plots now. The plot of Sheldon is now very ingrained into having Amy Farrah Fowler as part of his life. The plot with Howard very much includes the Bernadette character. They have a child together. They live together. They're married. So I think that it was a very sweet gesture. And people still say, yeah, but they're making $900,000 an episode. How much is it really going to hurt them to lose that? That's not exactly the point. I think it's a cool move.
Yeah, and the other part, and beat real quick, where's the text that's in the article here? What is that from? Is that from the Hollywood Reporter article on young Sheldon, or the other one? Because there's some stuff in here I want to point out that I think we're sort of possibly getting into a problem with, and it's not with Big Bang Theory being renewed. It's in the spin-offs, because there's a paragraph here that is interesting. This is Young Sheldon is one of multiple spin-offs underway this season. ABC is also prepping a 90s set spin-off of the Goldbergs, as well as a college-focused offshoot of Blackish, starring Yara Shahidi. And in an so I mean, we see CBS has already practiced some of this. The we also have CBS doing the Good Wife spinoff on CBS All Access with The Good Fight, and we have already got the Blacklist Redemption, and then the Dick Wolf Chicago verse that we've got going on over at NBC as well. So do you think we're getting at a little bit spin-off heavy when it comes to a lot of these shows?
Well, I mean, here's where Corey shits on people who can't come up with fucking new ideas. Yeah, I believe that that's something that's gone on for easily several generations, but certainly CBS has done it to death with their CSI series getting spun off and spun off and spun off and spun off. And it didn't matter if a series came out and then didn't make it. It's like, well, let's do another spin-off. Law and Order, is being pointed out by Evan, is another one that has had a lot of spin-offs to varying degrees of success and failure. They've tried twice now to spin off Criminal Minds. It's had a season that had Forrest Whitaker that didn't land and got canceled, and then they tried to do another series spin-off with I think Gary Sinise. He himself, which he himself had done a spin-off of CSI at one point. And then I think that one either failed or isn't coming back. It seems like they keep trying to milk a cow that only has so much milk to give, but we're just going to keep spreading it out. And so we'll make it all 2% as opposed to whole. So you don't get the fatty goodness. You just get the little bit of, there's a little something. That'll taste okay in cereal. That's essentially what they're doing, is they're just bleeding dry the love of one property to make multiple properties that won't have the same returns. And that's pretty dumb to me. On the other hand, the Young Sheldon series, as much as I am not interested in seeing a series about Young Sheldon, because like a prequel to The Walking Dead, it's like, I already know where this fucking goes. I will say it gives Laurie Metcalf another chance at a sitcom, and I adore Laurie Metcalf. So in that regard, I might enjoy it. It's really tough to say. I mean, isn't Fresh Off the Boat already based in the 90s?
Yeah, Fresh Off the Boat is based on the 90s, but Fresh Off the Boat and the Goldbergs are hitting this other trend that happened 2 years ago, and that was shows based on other people's lives,
right?
Who were involved in creating. So the Goldbergs is Adam F. Goldberg, based off of his life and as a child.
But as I understand it, the Goldberg spinoff is about the teachers from his school. It's about the coach. Yeah,
it's about the coach, the
counselor.
I don't know. I knew the pilot. They were talking about it being with the coach, but they might have brought in the counselor, who's Tim Meadows,
right? Who's already on Son of Zorn. I just like that's the spin-off direction, and then you have to do it a decade later as well. I don't really get the premise of that as to why that show, who conceptualized, like, we're going to do a spin-off of the Goldbergs, and we're going to make it about the gym coach and the school counselor, and we'll set it a few years later too, so it has nothing to do with any of these fucking characters now. I just, who conceptualized this and why?
Yeah.
The Blackish spinoff about the eldest daughter going to college, like, I remember a different world. I remember that it existed as one season about being about Denise Huxtable, and then they had to reinvent that show a couple of times over. I remember the Marissa Tomei years. I get why they think that her going to college could make for an interesting show, and the actress is great. She's great on the program, but the reason the program is good is because of the ensemble cast. I don't know that anybody's aching to see it spun off with her character. I would just assume her character still be a part of the show and do one of those stupid things where they're going to college in the same fucking town, so they still get to live at home and get to involve the college stories as someone who's developing these attitudes and stuff in college, which you already kind of see reflected in the characters in the show anyways. The kids are all kind of know-it-alls. They all think they're smarter than their parents, and often do. So why not just reflect that in the program as already exists? It's just, it's trying to get a bigger bank. It's trying to say, well, I produce a show and I want to have another show that I'm also going to get residuals on, which is fine, but it's such an easy, simplistic way to spread things out, as opposed to trying to come up with a new concept and new actors and everything else. And it bugs the shit out of me. It bugs me to no end, because it's all fucking Joni Loves Chachi at this point. And I don't know if you recall, but Joni Loves Chachi, shit show. Aftermath, shit show. Three's a Crowd, I love me some Jack Tripper, shit show. Fucking Three's Company had ended. We didn't need the continuation of that. Too many times it's just like, we can't improve this, but we're just gonna try to take what's already there and already sort of works and see if we can make it happen again. See if lightning strikes twice. It's not any good. It's too many times to the same well, and it just, I'm kind of disgusted by it. But that's why fucking mainstream TV is falling the fuck apart. Yeah. You know, we're at a point where people are already just sort of halfway disenchanted with the broadcast channels and what's on there. And as much as Big Bang Theory is a success, people love to hate it. People love to despise that show. So I don't know that you're going to get a lot of people who aren't already watching the Big Bang Theory to watch the spin-off show of it. And I think that a lot of people who watch the Big Bang Theory are not going to enjoy a show about a young Sheldon. I think they're going to feel like they already got their fill of it. It's the same thing as the How I Met Your Father spin-off that was supposed to happen and failed, and they're trying it again. I don't think that anybody is really jumping up and down to say, yeah, that's what I've been missing, is more of this thing that I already see too many fucking times in syndication every 7 to 8 o'clock. You know, it's, God damn it, TBS has played the shit out of the Big Bang Theory. I don't think I can handle any more of it.
Yeah. I don't know. Time will tell on a lot of these things. Where it is, you know, I am happy to see the Big Bang Theory get renewed, because I do like the Big Bang Theory. You know, it's good Saturday or Thursday night or Friday morning watching for me, but you know, who knows?
And keep in mind, this is me being a hypocrite, because I love the fucking Marvel movies, and the Marvel movies are just like one after a fucking another at this point. And we were just talking about Iron Fist and how that is relation to the other Marvel shows and stuff. But that's kind of like the Marvel shows on Netflix, at least, are short seasons, and they don't happen at the same time. We go through, we get a season of one, and then we have a couple months, and then we get a season of one, and we have a couple months to get the next season of the first one, and so on. It's a different animal than what this is. This is for mainstream TV. This is supposed to be 24 episodes a season, is the expectation. Yeah. And is there going to be a young Sheldon show that's like, here you watch young Sheldon and it leads right into the Big Bang Theory, or vice versa, to try to get the numbers, to get the people to watch it? I just don't know that that's anything that is going to work to their benefit. It was a little different in the 80s when it was like, oh, we have the Golden Girls and then we have Empty Nest. Well, Empty Nest was a completely different fucking show. It's just that they existed in the same universe, so it kind of had an air of connectedness to it. Or TGI Fridays, when it was like, oh, and here's Steve Urkel and he puts on his jetpack and all of a sudden he's hanging out with the Step by Step kids. Okay, yeah, I mean, I get that conceptually, but they still are their own fucking thing. It's not like Urkel is hanging out at Family Matters and then goes next door and it's Urkel's family and shit. That would be something else entirely, because we were already fucking Urkeled out. Any more Urkel would have just put us over the fucking edge. But we got enough Jaleel to sustain us for several seasons, and it was that's how you fucking do it. I don't know.
Kids, for that reference, ask your parents.
And they will be upset. They will be upset that someone talks smack about Jaleel White.
All right. Well, that is, I think, going to do it for us here tonight. Unless there's anything else you want to add there, Corey.
No.
All right.
Fuck NCIS.
Fair enough.
Just on principle, fuck NCIS.
But yeah, so you could send us mail, send us your hate mail, send us your voicemail, send us your love mail at mail@ElseNerds.com, or you can leave us a voicemail if you want to do it over the phones at 805-328-3966. You could find all of our subscription links, our subscription options and links over at gncast.com/subscribe. You can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/galacticnetcasts. Follow the show and the network at ElseNerds and at Galactic Netcast. You can follow the producers. Beatmaster is at Beatmaster80. Evan is at Mr_Fusion. I'm at that Gregor or that.Gregor on Instagram. And Corey, where can people find you?
You can find the comics that I help publish at don'taskcomics.com. Strangely enough, a lot of them are shared universe shit. Balyar spun off from Levi's World, and then later on, Strobe spun off from Balyar. So, that's just me being a dick. What are you going to do?
And it's a good thing we didn't pick a news story that you talked about yesterday on Podcast of Terror, because then, shared universe shit.
Speaking of the Podcast of Terror, something to look forward to this coming Sunday. Now, this week, we had Nicole Davis from Geek Cinema Society was on to finally get to do the movie that she recommended a while ago, Thirst. But this coming Sunday, we will be recording our live episode for next week's release. And that episode, our guest will be Glenn Rubenstein.
What? Wait, why is he going on pot and not here?
I don't know, man. I think it precludes us from telling him because we don't want him to know what's going on.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I forgot to mention. This has been a Don't Tell Glenn production. We will see you next week.
And or else.